Welcome back to Unleashing You. Today, I speak with Kate Killian. Kate is not only a friend, she's also a somatic coach for high-achieving creatives who know they are meant to change the world with their art. Through her work with private clients and in her coaching programs, Kate helps artists of all flavors stop procrastinating on their destiny, make art on a daily basis, and build the resilience to make creativity their full-time gig. Kate started out life as a professional violinist. She did a 7-year stint as a software engineer and program manager and walked her own path back to a creative career as a singer, songwriter, and music producer and content creator, in addition to coaching. Kate lives in Colorado with her husband and her cats, and she loves slow walks, staring at the clouds, dancing wildly in her office, and talking about anything and everything creativity and personal development. She also recently expanded her offerings to work with public figures and help them show up as their most magnetic selves when public speaking. I even got the chance to work with Kate before going out on stage at Unleashing You Live. We're going to get into all of that in today's combo, so get ready. Welcome to Unleashing You. This podcast is your permission slip to create success your way. I'm your host, Amanda Riffey, a certified success coach and female business leader who has climbed her way up the corporate ladder. I've been through burnout and back and found the tools to bring fun and enjoyment to my career while creating powerful results and leading in a way that feels authentic to me. This show brings you conversations with women just like you who have created massive success for themselves and are doing it in their own way. We'll hear about their personal journeys of growing their career while still prioritizing the things they love most. If you are ready to be challenged and encouraged to reach your next level, then buckle up, sister, because the road to dreamy success begins here. Let's dive in. Kate, I am so excited to have you on the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so excited to be here.
Me too. And this is just such great timing for the recording of this podcast because even though this will come out a little bit later, you and I just had Unleashing You live this week. And so I think we're just still feeling the energy from that. We're going to talk a little bit about your involvement in Unleashing You live as well. But I just feel like this timing is just so good for us to be chatting about this work.
I know. It was such a pleasure to be there and see you in your power and your magic. The event was incredible. It was just such a privilege to be part of it.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, we are definitely going to dive into your role in that because I think people listening, you might find yourself some clients through this because there's so many people that need your magic. So before we jump into all of that, let's just take a step back and just tell us a little bit about you, your career journey, the business you have today. Let's just get to know Kate a little bit.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So yeah, I am Kate Killian. I am a somatic coach for creative visionaries. And that means I support musicians, actors, writers, all sorts of people, entrepreneurs, and particularly anybody that identifies as being perfectionist and a high achiever, because that was my story. That's how I got into doing what I'm doing today is I started out life as a violinist. I started playing when I was age 3.5, and I played all the way through my mid-late 20s, and I burnt out. There's a long story behind that, so I won't get into that. But I just thought to myself, I'm not cut out for this. I'm not able to make this work. And it's because I'm just not good enough. I'm not trying hard enough. I'm lazy. I had so many stories. So I was like, okay, I should just do what everybody else says you should do, which is just have a normal job and just be content with your 9 to 5 and do things as a hobby on the side. But then the thing is, I couldn't even get myself to do things as a hobby on the side. I had so much pressure around what I wanted to do then, which was I wanted to learn how to sing again. I wanted to songwrite. I wanted to learn music production. And just watching myself basically, like, in my opinion, like fritter my life away in a 9 to 5 and get sucked into overworking and hustling and all of that, and then continually, conveniently pushing my own creative projects to the side. When around 2019, 2020 came, it was like, I am done. I'm done with this shit, basically. So then I went on a journey of, I had been a productivity system junkie. Like, I learned all the productivity things and the project management and all those things. And I realized that's not getting me anywhere. The answer is somewhere else. So I really began exploring like emotions. I took a yoga teacher training, and then that led me to somatic work. And I was like, my mind was blown by all of that. And that's what really helped me unlock and unleash my creativity again, that kind of wild spirit, that precocious, irreverent, like playful, experimental person that I was when I was a little kid and even as a teenager. So that's how I got back to doing what I love, music. And then that's also like, I always knew alongside returning to my creativity that I wanted to do some kind of healing work or helping work. And that's also what helped me have the audacity and the courage to really go for it, to know myself well enough to know what I was capable of and really go for it in building the coaching business that I've built.
I love that so much. And I always say, like, number one, I love listening to you talk. I think we've said this before, you and I, when I'm like, you're like a walking poem. Like, everything you say is just so beautiful. And like, you use words that I'm like, oh, I would have never thought to use that word. So good. I want to talk a little bit about somatic healing because I'm trying to think, like, I think it was really when I started getting more into entrepreneurship and then learning just a little bit more around different healing modalities and things like that, that I actually became familiar with somatic work. So can you talk to us a little bit about what that means? Like, it might be a word that we've heard, but people don't necessarily know exactly what that is.
100%. Yeah. Happy to get into it. I myself, I had never heard of this before, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. And I was basically like a floating head. Like, that's how I went through life. Like, pretty much anything to do with my body was just an inconvenience. Like, the fact that I had to take a pee break when I was working my 9 to 5 and like trying to get a big project done was like, ugh, so annoying. Or the fact that I would have panic or IBS or things like that when I was like really nervous or when something wasn't a good fit. Again, I looked at it as like, what's wrong with me? I just need to fix myself. So somatic work, soma means body. So somatic work is a paradigm of change, because I'm sure your listeners know that, like, in order to change what you're doing in your life, like approach a new career or leave your 9 to 5 job or take on a new role in your organization or like whatever it is, there are new actions you need to take, sure. And that's, you cannot literally change your life without taking a ton of action. But there's so much on the mindset level, but then even on a body level, that your body is basically how somatic work approaches this, is that your body holds all of the things that are in your unconscious that you're not aware of on like the most superficial layer. So even like your thoughts and your beliefs, the things that you're already aware of like, well, I'm scared to go after that because I'm afraid of what, I'm afraid people will think that I'm selfish. That level of like a thought or a belief, that's like the top layer of the cake. I'm trying to come up with an analogy that's works for this.
It makes total sense to me.
Yeah. So ultimately, the theory behind most somatic modalities, which mean working with the body first, working with sensations, emotions, movement, voice, gesture, and we can get into more of those details later if you want. But like, when you work on that level, that helps like rapidly shift the thoughts and beliefs. It only helps to solidify the mindset work that you're doing. and also like speed it up because you're working at the deepest layer of your unconscious, which is happening in the body.
Yeah. Yes. I love the way you broke that down because one of the things that I have become very aware of since diving so deep into personal development work is listening to my body. And that I think is exactly what you're talking about is our body is so freaking smart and it is sending us signals all of the time. And we just get used to ignoring them or quieting them, or we don't know how to listen to them. I love that you use the example of something as simple as like taking a pee break or taking a health break when we're working on something where we're like, oh my God, that's so annoying. When really our body's like, hey, it's time to get up and like take a break from what you're doing. Like there's all kinds of ways that our body communicates with us. And when we can tap into that, talk about tapping into like you said, like that next layer of our superpower. Like I always talk about, your intuition being your North Star. And this, when you can really tap into how do those messages show up for you, oh my gosh, you have the roadmap to create whatever it is that you want to create.
Exactly. And early on in my journey, before I really understood what somatic work was, I would hear like, okay, got to listen to my intuition. And I was like, what the frick is
Yeah, what does
that?
that
Like,
even mean?
I'm like, how do I know what's my intuition and how do I know what's a should, And so I remember really grappling with that. And thankfully, like even from my earliest coaching training, which wasn't necessarily a strictly somatic training, it was very much like a mind body connection type of coaching training. It isn't like an ICF program. But one of the first tools that we learned was about how to make decisions according to your body's sensations. Um, and that was so powerful, like really learning and noticing if I look back at a past experience where I'm like, I know in retrospect that wasn't a good fit. Okay, if I bring that memory to mind, what are the literal sensations I notice in my body when I think about that memory? Do I notice? And for every person, it's different. And that's the thing, is it's so unique for each person. And so that's why it really is like you are the expert on yourself. And it's just through being guided to learn how to do that little snapshot of like what's actually happening inside your unique body is what will then begin to tune you into like, oh, that's what my no feels like. That's what my yes feels like. And here's what my, oh shit, I'm afraid, but I'm actually saying yes feels like.
Yes. Yeah, I love this tool. I'm so glad that you brought this up because when you mentioned it, I was like, oh, I'm going to ask her about that next if she doesn't talk about what it is. Because I could just imagine somebody driving in the car and being like, well, tell me how to do that. Like, that's exactly what I need to know how to do. And so I love that you broke it down and the fact, number one, it's different for everyone, but just that's something all of us could do is to go back in our memories and think of, okay, what were the times when we made a decision and it totally, worked out or, something beautiful came on the other side of that, even if we were super scared to do it and it felt really unknown at the time. Or when were the times where we made a decision and we're like, "Ooh, yeah, if I could go back, I would redo that." I even told a story at Unleashing You Live that was very similar to that in when I was signing up with different coaches and had an experience where I felt really forced and pressured, and I said yes anyway. And yes, there was learning in that, but of course, if I could go back and redo it, I'm not spending that money on that program. But then there were other times where doubt tried to stop me from saying yes to a certain program or mastermind or whatever. But I leaned into my intuition and I did it anyway. And it ended up being like the catalyst that helped me, create the business I have today. And so those are two perfect examples in my life that I could look back on and say, like, okay, how did I feel in those moments? What were the signals that my body was giving me? And like you said, even when I think back to those memories now, what things come up for me in my body because it's so telling for then when I make decisions moving forward, how to lean into that. Oh,
Yeah, like what's coming up for me. So a couple of examples is like I took a program manager role at a corporation, and on paper, it was like exactly what I needed to do for the next step in my career. And it was an amazing opportunity, and I'm still glad that I did it because I built honestly so much of what I learned in that experience helped support what I'm doing today, which is building out my offerings and building out my programs. I got to be very entrepreneurial within a corporate setting. But I remember walking into the interview with the person who was going to be my manager. And if I had to describe the sensations in my body, it was like from the absolute root of my pelvis, like so my seat, all the way up through my stomach, all the way up through my chest and throat, just became like it was like concrete, like flooded in and blocked. Like I just felt like this stagnant heaviness, like in every single area of my body. And yet there was this kind of like noisiness up in my head and my neck that was like, gotta do this, gotta do this. Whereas if I think about, for example, like the recent thing where you were like, hey, do you want to do this embodiment speaking thing? There was a little bit of that nervousness, sure, kind of floating up around in my throat, chest area, like a little bit of a frenetic energy. And when I work with my clients, I ask them, like, what's the color? What's the texture? Like, what's the shape? Is it like a character? Like, this is the kind of stuff that we get into when we do work together.
yes.
But at the bottom, so in my pelvis, in my lower abdomen, in my, like the middle of my stomach, is this kind of like wide, vast openness. Like, I just think it feels like an open vista, like when you're looking at a horizon or an open stage, like when you see the spotlight coming down and there's just this kind of like quiet awe. Like, that's the feeling that I have in my lower body when I know that an experience is a right fit for me, even if another part of me is freaking out a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that description. Because also, too, I think it gives us permission to really look at, okay, what does it feel like in my body? Like even I still go more to like words around like thoughts and feelings and things like that, where you go directly to like, this is how it felt in my body. And oh my gosh, that's so powerful.
The thing is, this is a skill that you can learn. For anybody who's listening to this and is like, I have no idea what I'm feeling in my body.
Like vast, I don't even know what that feels like.
I got you. I also had no idea what any of this stuff felt like in my body. It's a practice. It's like you're rebuilding a relationship because so much of our culture discourages having a relationship with our body sensations. Again, it's like you're taught not to fidget in school and you're taught to sit still and sit straight. And, you really have to kind of like fit yourself into like, of course, because none of this is inherently bad. Like as children, you're trying to fit into an adult's world by necessity because they're the ones who happen to be taking care of you. And then, of course, there are more degrees of awfulness of, certain really strict school environments or maybe even like literal situations of emotional abuse or something like that, which then only distance you further from my body is not a safe place to be because I don't have the resources to be able to handle experiencing this amount of emotion and sensation in my body. So it's a practice and it's rebuilding a relationship, but you can do it. I'm just here to tell you that if you're like, I don't know what my body is saying to me, you can do it. It is the same as if you're getting to know a new person. It's the same as if you're getting to know a new pet or a new animal. You adopted a new animal and you're learning their little signals. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, it is. It's so much like that. And that's just what I love about the work that you do. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. I wanted to interrupt for a brief moment to let you know that I'm currently enrolling in one-on-one private coaching. If you are ready to go all in and see big results, this is for you. With my Transforming You option, we will spend 3 months together focused just on you. Working one-on-one in this capacity will skyrocket your growth beyond your wildest dreams. This is the deep inner work. We will dig into your goals, your dreams, the things that are holding you back, the things you didn't even know were holding you back. This is what will unlock that next level of you, whatever that might be. Maybe you want to step into that next promotion at work or grow your own business. Maybe you're longing for more balance between your career and your family. Or maybe you're unsure of what you're craving next and you want to find more clarity on your career and life direction. That's what we'll unpack together. No 2 sessions are alike. Plus, you'll have on-demand access to me throughout our entire time together. You will go through such a transformation as you step into the next era of you. This is the personal growth that takes years to accomplish on your own. So let's accelerate that and get you the results you're craving right now. Send me a message on Instagram or head to acrprofessionalcoaching.com to learn more. I'll also put the details in the show notes for you. Your road to dreamy success begins here. Now, back to the episode. So let's talk about the embodiment sessions that you and I did together. So I'd love to tell the story of number one, just how this came about, because I think just that is really powerful. And then I'd love to get into the work that you and I did together. So I'll let you share and then I'll share my perspective.
Okay. Sounds good. Yeah. So Amanda, as well as Sasha, held an incredible vision casting experience at her house, which is a co-working space. I'm guessing some of your listeners are familiar with this, but
if they listen to Sasha's episode, they should be.
And they should go listen to Sasha's episode. Yes, exactly. So Sasha's a baddie. You're a baddie. You both led this event at her house, and you walked us through a visualization that was really connecting with our higher self of like, what are we calling in for 2025? Where are we headed? And where are we going outside our preconceived limitations, essentially? I know I'm kind of nutshelling this. So for me, what came up was stages. And this has kind of been floating in the background for a little while, but it was like very clear to me. I am meant to be both on stages and also working with artists and people who are on stage behind the scenes. And also like in a recording setting, people get nervous for recordings. And or, when you're a recording artist, you're basically like taking a little snapshot of your artistic vision and of your voice and of your ability to express in real time. And there can be a feeling of pressure around that. So I saw myself leading these embodiment sessions where I was helping artists. That's what came up in the visualization. I was helping artists really anchor into like, what am I here to express? Like, what's the boldest edge of what I want to be able to express on this performance and this recording? And really using all of the tools that I've learned and developed to like actually use movement and gesture. And again, all the beautiful tools in my somatic toolkit to help people anchor into the identity and the expression that they want to communicate in this like performance opportunity. And so, Amanda, I spoke this out loud, because we were just kind of popcorning around the room, asking people to share their visions. And I shared a bit. And you were like, have you thought about doing that for anybody else? And I was like, I don't know, because I was just trying to stay true to what I had seen in the vision. But then later, you were like, so I think there could be an opportunity for speakers. How would you feel about doing something like this for the speakers at Unleashing You Live? And for me, that was like an oh crap moment. Like, oh yeah, this actually would, I didn't even think of that. And then I had forgotten conveniently that I had led a talk series at, again, that program management corporate role job where I coached speakers.
Right? They're like, "Oh,
So
connecting all the dots. Okay."
it's like, hello, Kate. Why are you forgetting that you literally did this for years? But it was a real like moment of, oh, here's this whole area of passion that I have and this gift that I know I'm here to bring. And here's this whole area that's like they are closely related to each other, but it's a whole new twist on this that I honestly hadn't even thought of. And so I was like, let's go, baby. Like, let's make this
Mhm.
happen.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's so good. Yeah, Sasha and I were, like, plotting behind the scenes. We were, like, back and forth, and I'm like, "Yep, yep, yep, we're gonna do it." So I sent you a message because I think of anyone who's listening who has dreams of speaking on stages, which I know there are quite a few people who listen to this podcast who have that dream. And or I think of even, like, even back in my corporate career when I had to lead a huge presentation or, something that was just, like, way out of my I'd say my comfort zone of, like, oh my gosh, like, I would do somatic practices without really realizing it beforehand. Like, people always see me, like, dancing it out before I have to present something or go on stage or whatever. So I thought about that when you were talking because I was like, "Oh my gosh, like what a powerful offering for someone who is about to go, share their art, share their passion, share their creativity in, a speaking or presentation or performance of some kind." You could be so valuable. And so we partnered together. You ended up offering your services for all of the speakers at Unleashing You Live. So not just for me, which was just so incredible.
Mm.
And I got to witness not only my own embodiment session, but I also got to witness at least two others because I just happened to be backstage when you were doing those. And so I would love to just talk a little bit about like what does this embodiment session look like? Like if we could just like pull back the curtain, what were some of the things that we worked on?
Yes. So, okay, how we did it for most of the speakers is we had a pre showtime session, a prep session, if you will, where I got to know each speaker and I got to know, okay, like what are the things that you're afraid of? Or like if you feel the nervousness, also, where do you feel that nervousness in your body? And again, my perspective on sensations is like almost as if they have a life of their own. And we need to not just try to shove them away in the corner and be like, go away, you're inconvenient, but to let them speak and see like, what do they have to say? Maybe it's something that we might not actually expect. So I know with one of the other speakers, there was a little bit of nervousness that was showing up in her womb space. And then we kind of interviewed that bundle of sensations. And then it had so much to say about like, I'm here to express this. And like, I want to show up in this way. And then basically what we did is we incorporated the things that it said into a curated visualization and movement practice. The prep session is like a separate meeting that happens before the day of the speaking event itself. That's like 45, 60 minutes, whatever. And then on the day of, I basically take everything that we discussed about what your nervousness had to say, the movements that were helpful in expressing what you wanted to express, and like anchoring into the vision and the feeling that you're really striving for and connecting with the audience and the characteristics. Like, I think you had said, like, I want to be caring and confident and powerful. Okay, what does that look like in your body? Like, how would you be carrying yourself if you did feel those feelings or if you did know that you were expressing those traits? And then basically took all that information and like put together almost like a little mini movement practice and visualization and a curated playlist that was unique to each person that I kind of intuitively put together based off
It
of.
was perfect, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely like, we do want to, some people say shake the nerves out. For me, my perspective on this is embracing the activation. Because I know for me, in my experience as a performer. Because context on me, even though I was a musician, I dealt with crippling stage fright and panic before going on stage, especially later in my career when I had a lot of pressure, was putting a lot of pressure on me to show up in a certain way that honestly was so divorced from who I actually am. So ultimately, my philosophy with nervousness is that there's something that it's here to say. And if I try to push it away, then I'm gonna keep fighting my attention between like what I want to focus on and then the nervousness. So what we did in all embodiment sessions was really try to at first embrace the nervousness and again, see like, what did it have to say today? And how do we allow it space to express itself around the green room in the little backstage room before you go on stage? And when you embrace the nervousness and like channel it in that moment, it's like, oh, you see me. You're not going to ignore me. Because usually that nervousness is coming from a part of us that like needs love, needs some kind of love and acceptance. So then that's the first part of our little pre-showtime embodiment session. And then again, really using movement and visualization and sound, and then the curated playlist to really anchor into the vision of what am I here to express? And we only spent about 15 minutes together. And this can be expanded as long or as short as a person wants, like ultimately, whatever amount of support they would like before their speaking engagement.
Yeah, it was so powerful because number one, I loved the session ahead of time because you asked me so many really thoughtful and intentional questions around, like you said, like, how did I want to show up? How did I want to feel in those moments? And I know one of the words that had come up through that session was the word connected. And I wanted to feel really connected to the women who were there because anyone who has stood on a stage or again, given a huge presentation or talk knows that like you need, like, at least I need to feel connected to that audience. I don't like to feel very separated from them, even if I'm the one presenting. So we went through and we said, okay, what does that look like? What does that feel like when you're really connected? So we used words like ease and flow. And we even went through and did a visualization of like, okay, if I was up there and super nervous, what do I picture as what connectedness looks like? And so you had even said like, maybe it's like little hummingbirds coming around, maybe they're coming from me to them, to them, to them, which anyone who knows me, like hummingbirds is my like spiritual sign that I see. So when you said hummingbirds, I was like, oh my God, like, okay, this is real. But even then I was like, okay, so I closed my eyes and I really pictured it. And I pictured like these like gold sparkle stars just kind of surrounding everyone and surrounding me too. And I felt really connected to them in that moment. So it was like things like that that then helped me to tap into that when I was on the stage. And then, of course, the session that we did right before, right, when like all the nerves start kicking in, you ask really intentional questions around like, okay, where are you feeling it right now? I'm like, okay, I'm feeling it in my chest. Okay, let's figure out like where do we want that energy to go? Let's recognize it. And we did like, dancing around the room. We did stomping. We did like all kinds of things. It was just so much fun, by the way. And then you brought it all together with just a really beautiful, almost like meditation visualization. And that's where I started to feel like the emotions coming up. You reflected back words to me that we had talked about in our pre-session that just you knew were going to land for me because we had talked about them already. So it was like, you are showing up, you are really caring, you're confident, you're a leader, you're connected, and so it was all of those things in a visualization. And it was just the perfect way to go out on stage. So, number one, thank you. And I know I'm not alone in that. So, I'm hoping that people are listening to this and thinking about how they can get more in touch with themselves before they have any type of public speaking or performances or whatever that might be, because being able to tap into your body and use that energy to help you just like unleash your own magnetism is just such a beautiful gift.
Yes.
So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. If folks are listening and they're like, how do I kind of grok this for myself? Some questions that I would ask yourself are, first of all, get really clear about what is it about this particular experience that makes me feel nervous. Because so often it's like, oh, I'm nervous. Oh, I should just not be nervous. Like, blah, blah, blah. And
Yep.
again, just trying to shove it away. But if you move towards it, well, for you, it was like, I feel connected and I don't feel nervous when I feel like I'm kind of on the same level or we're on the same team. And so then again, like the sparkles that you ended up coming up with was a way for you to kind of maintain that connection with the audience. For another person, it was like noticing like, oh, I feel nervous because I think that they're going to be like judging me and thinking like, oh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, or oh, this is a waste of time. And then I asked her that this is whenever you have some kind of a limiting belief or some kind of a block that's coming up, think about a time where you don't have that nervousness and what do you believe then? Because you really get to borrow your strengths from this other area of your life where you feel confident or at ease or it doesn't bother you or whatever it is. So for one of the other folks that I've worked with in this context, they were like, oh, yeah, I know one area of my life where I don't care what other people think. It's this, I won't go into the details, but it's this area. Like, I truly don't care what they think, even though these people are kind of upset with my point of view. And I asked her, okay, what does that feel like in your body? When you are like, I don't care. I literally don't care. What do you feel expansive? Do you feel a color? Do you feel floaty? And it was like a lifting sensation in her cheeks and kind of this bubbly laughter in her stomach. So then we had a little sensation snapshot that she could connect to when she was thinking about going on stage and, what would normally make her quite nervous. And that helped bring down the nervousness like a pretty fair amount in the process of, yeah. So ultimately, like the questions to summarize, because I know I'm rambling a bit, is what specifically makes me nervous? Like, let's really get curious about that. And then, can I borrow some strength from another area of my life where either it can be an image or a visualization of something that feels comforting, or it can literally be thinking of another area of your life where maybe it's sort of similar, but I don't feel nervous about this at all. And then copy paste those sensations, like copy paste those images or how you relate with that other situation and practice applying it to this situation. And that's where, if we work together, like having a literal guided somatic practice to help you anchor into those sensations can be really helpful too. But those questions are a great start for sure.
I love that. Thank you so much for just giving us those tools that we can use at home and on our own as well. Kate, thank you so much for this conversation. We're going to link all of Kate's stuff below. So check her out, connect with her on Instagram. She's so many amazing offers and ways that you can work with her. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too. And I can't wait, like, hopefully more future conversations to come.
Yes, absolutely.
I feel like this was the tip of the iceberg of what we could chat about. But
yes,
yeah.
Yes, for sure. Oh, I love you so much. Thanks, Kate.
I love you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you'd like to continue this conversation, connect with me on Instagram and say hello. You can find me at AmandaRiffy_coaching. In the meantime, if you know you are ready to step into the next incredible version of you and want to completely accelerate your personal and professional growth, let's work together. I offer one-on-one private coaching as well as workshops and in-person events. There's really something for everyone. To learn more, visit my website at acrprofessionalcoaching.com or send me a DM on Instagram and start a conversation. And don't worry, I truly want all of us to succeed. So I promise I will never steer you wrong. Let's create a career and life you love. Chat with you again soon.